What about the role of the Governor General? I know that's also appointed by the Prime Minister to the Crown, and that the
Yeah.
Crown installs that. But what's the role of the Governor General within the system?
Mostly ceremonial, like almost entirely ceremonial in the sense that they are the Crown's representative in Canada, His Majesty's representative in Canada. All right. And so their practical role is to give out awards and to meet foreign heads of state and dignitaries because they are the representative of the head of state in Canada. There are a few reserve powers, and these are kind of becoming controversial because of, I think, things we're going to talk about the prorogation of Parliament. The Prime Minister has to go to the Governor General to sort of say, can we dissolve or prorogue Parliament to hold a new election? And the Governor General is supposed to follow the advice of the Prime Minister. There's disagreement among experts on if the Governor General can refuse a Prime Minister in certain circumstances. I'm one of those people who thinks in very rare circumstances, the Governor General has a role to reject a Prime Ministerial advice. But there are others who disagree. But I would say my reading of that is rooted in a truer understanding of the Westminster style system of government.
All right. So the role of the Governor General is mostly founded in when issues like the one we currently have in government happen. Otherwise, it's a ceremonial role.
Yeah.
So really, it's the Governor General who can really, to a great extent, determine if a Prime Minister stays in power, especially in this kind of situation.
Only in very rare circumstances,
Right.
because normally the people with the voice to say whether a Prime Minister should stay in office are parliamentarians. It's the House of Commons. And when they vote non-confidence
Right.
in the government, they're saying we don't have confidence in you. When they keep passing bills, then they're saying we have confidence in the government. The unique situation that happened in early January was that the Prime Minister went to the Governor General and said, can we prorogue Parliament? Which kind of shuts down the whole legislative session until sometime in March. And normally that should be uncontroversial. A Prime Minister is just saying we want to pause Parliament and we want to start up a new session in a few months. Normally, the Governor General's role is to completely accept that. The Governor General has no reason to disagree unless it's going past the period of time in which we would normally have an election. The difference in this case is that the reason Trudeau went to ask for prorogation is that he was going to resign and he wanted to give opportunity for the Liberal Party to elect a new leader. But also, and this is the most important thing, over the Christmas holidays from mid-December through the end of the year, all of the leaders of the other parties in Parliament had said that they no longer had confidence in the government. In my mind, the Governor General made a significant mistake there because the Governor General knew, or at least had reason to believe, that the government, the Prime Minister did not have the confidence of Parliament. Parliament was set to resume in January. The Governor General should have said, listen, it seems like you don't have the confidence of Parliament. I don't want to say no to you, but why don't you go back to Parliament, meet for a very limited session, and let's find out if this is true or not. Maybe Jagmeet Singh and maybe Pierre Poilievre wouldn't vote down the government. But the Governor General had, very clear and very good reason to believe that the Prime Minister did not enjoy the confidence of Parliament. And that is the central feature of our system of government, of responsible government. They have to have the confidence of Parliament. So in my mind, it was a fundamental error for the Governor General to allow that prorogation to take place.
Could it be in part because she was thinking that it could lead to chaos in governance if he didn't have the confidence, or Trudeau didn't have the confidence of Parliament anymore? And there's already a hugely overwhelming dissatisfaction in public in the current administration. Do you think that's sufficient reason to have approved the prorogation?
No, I think the reason she would be advised to accept the prorogation was, the one hand, that it's only in very rare circumstances that a Governor General could ever, not follow a Prime Minister's advice. It would be anti-democratic. We wouldn't want a Governor General to kind of not follow the Prime Minister's advice usually. So I think that is the main reason. And she's probably convinced that it was only for a few months. And so the timing wasn't too far. It wasn't for 6 months or a year. It was a couple of months. And so that probably seemed reasonable. And then also, for the reason for the dissolution was that it was give the Liberals time to choose a new leader, and then that leader would come to Parliament and we'd find out, if Parliament supported the government. So I think that's the best case scenario for why she did what she did. But as I say, given that she had reason to think that at that moment, the Parliament did not have confidence in the government, we have a situation where there was a new American president coming in, threatening incredible economic sanctions against Canada. So with pretty severe consequences for Canada, putting off an election for 2.5 months, but putting off the government facing Parliament for 2.5 months is a pretty significant decision to make. And I think it would have been much wiser to say, okay, You're going to meet Parliament. We're going to see if Parliament supports you. If Parliament supports you, then that's fine. It's not controversial. But if Parliament doesn't support you, then you shouldn't be in government.
So what could have happened is if Parliament does not support him, they would have elected.
Yeah, they just. I mean, you would instantly go to a new election. He would. Sorry, I'm trying to get the right of this. There would be he would still be prime minister until there was a new election, or unless the Parliament then found a new leader. I'm trying to think if it's an interim leader. I have to think about the specifics of exactly who was prime minister over that moment in time.
So let me play the devil's advocate here, and I know people will ask this kind of questions in the comment section. You wrote about this in your article as well, which I'm going to tag in the description for this video. You called it unconstitutional, the way she agreed to prorogue Parliament. But Harper's administration also had Parliament prorogued in 2008. I read about this. I wasn't living in Canada till But how does that compare? Is this a precedent that you think this current administration
I think the Harper president was a bad precedent, and it probably was set there. This did happen in 2008,
right,
when there had just been an election in the fall. Harper was re-elected, although with a minority parliament, like the current Trudeau government, so they didn't have a majority in the House. And, again, there was a pretty significant international climate at that time. There's an economic crisis that hadn't been clear at the beginning of the election cycle, but after the election cycle, it was clear that the international economic crisis was going to change things. And the three opposition party leaders of the Liberals, the NDP, and controversially the Bloc Québécois came together and they signed an agreement, and they held up this sheet of paper at a press conference that said, we're going to vote out the Harper government and we're going to agree to form a kind of coalition government. That may have been politically stupid to agree to sign a government deal with the Bloc Québécois that doesn't really believe Canada should exist, but it was entirely constitutional. That government, if it had been allowed to form, would have represented a majority in Parliament. They would have had the confidence of Parliament, and that's what matters in our system. In that case, the Governor General kind of allowed a prorogation over, I believe it was the Christmas break, and in the interim, the Liberals decided to change their mind, right? And they got rid of their leader, Stéphane Dion, and they chose a new leader who then decided, we're not going to tear up that agreement. In actual practice, I would say Harper should not have been allowed to prorogue, because the purpose of his prorogation wasn't the normal, we're going to pause things to kind of reset. It was to flee the scrutiny of Parliament. The Governor General had every reason to believe, very firm reason to believe, that Parliament did not have confidence in the government. They absolutely should have been forced to go and face Parliament to see whether that was the case. But actually, the current example is even more egregious, because at least in that case, there'd just been an election, right? And so you could at least say, we just had an election, so it's pretty clear that Canada's divided. They weren't going to give anyone a majority. Still, I don't think it was a good reason. But in this case, we're years from an election in a minority government. There's every reason to go and, make the government face Parliament. And if they don't have confidence in the government, then having a new election, which was bound to happen later this year anyway.
Revaluate is a project I embarked upon to spark meaningful conversations that can inspire critical thinking as we navigate the adventures of life. The analytics on this channel show about 95% of the viewers on the channel haven't subscribed yet. So you do me a favor by clicking the subscribe button right now. Then I'll keep my promise to continually improve on the quality of the conversations that are produced on this channel every time.